Greetings. Welcome to part two of our series on pilgrimage. And I hope you will enjoy this continuation of what I recorded for you last week. This week, we're going to talk a little bit more about what it means to make pilgrimage, the mindset of a pilgrim, a part of everyday life, and to think about pilgrimage in different formats other than this, specifically the Camino de Santiago. But I am going to go into more detail about the Camino and share some of the experiences that I had along the way and how the Camino ends up in Santiago de Compostela. So I'm going to switch to my screen share right now. So just a moment. Okay, so here we go, pilgrimage part 2. Let us begin with a prayer, and please read this along with me, if you will. Teach us, O God, to view our life on earth as a pilgrim's path to heaven, and give us grace to tread it courageously in the company of your faithful people. Help us to set our affections on things above, not on the passing vanities of this world, and grant that as we journey in the way of holiness, we may bear a good witness to our Lord and serve all who need our help along the way, for the glory of your name. Amen. All right, I said we were going to talk about a different way of thinking about pilgrimage. And this first slide is, we're going to go through several slides here, which have several steps that you can use. Some of them would apply to going on a journey, and some of them apply just to even everyday life. So first of all, when setting out on a pilgrimage, it is important to start out with something that you feel is personally sacred, that you are going to focus on being open to the sacred on this journey. So this could be a journey around the block with your dog, or it could be to far off places. But there's something to be said, and that is very important about committing in your mindset to finding something that is sacred to you along the way. And our definition of sacred is something that is worthy of reverence and evokes awe and wonder. Can be most anything that you maybe just need to look at a little bit differently, even though it's ground that you have tread many times before. It is helpful, second point here, is helpful to do something rigorous to help you break through the everyday. And we usually think of that in terms of physical activity, but it also could be a mental activity that really stretches you. It could be that your pilgrimage is to plan out a journey in great detail, even though it may be something you'll never do in real life. But for some people who are planners, there can be great satisfaction in just researching all that might go into doing a journey. So, and the point here is just to get out of the everyday routine, which we often approach and walk through on a kind of autopilot. So soulful journeys should also invite both the emotion and commotion. So breaking things up a little bit, and the emotion is that which you find sacred in the way. Pilgrimage involves an intention to do inner work, that there's more going on here than seeing the sights as they go by, but that those experiences are used for reflection and growth. Make it an ordeal. I love this saying by Richard Rohr, and I use it a lot, that great love and great suffering are the things that open us up to true spiritual development. That when we become vulnerable, as we do with great love or great suffering, we create an opening for God to work within us. So this is why when I talk about pilgrimage and we walked 18 miles in one day, or 16 or 12 miles in a day, people are just like, whoa, And yes, it was an ordeal and it was out of the ordinary, but those are the things that tend to break us open. It is in pilgrimage, we find sacred time. And if you're out in nature, maybe that is pausing instead of just walking by. Or maybe just spending time contemplating that which one experienced during the day. But the definition of sacred is very unique to the individual, and it doesn't require someone else's designation, as in this is a holy site, or this is a thin place, or this is a World Heritage Site. It's very much up to the individual. And if you long for something, if you really desire certain kinds of experiences, chances are those things are sacred to you. And that's one way to help identify what is sacred for you as an individual. So it can be any variety of things: art, buildings, books, music, nature, food. Any of these things I've listed here can all create a sense of longing to have experience more, to dig deeper, to really absorb the energy that has for you. Expanding the notion of pilgrimage, I love this quote. If the pilgrim abroad travels with intention, the pilgrim at home lives with intention. So critical to a mindset of the pilgrim, that we get ourselves out of the autopilot mode and into something that is much more conscious and mindful. Identifying intentions, that you can do this by looking for, turning inward and looking for what are you hoping for, what is important to you, and what are your desires for your life, and then incorporate those into life. Or you may create a pilgrim journey for that, or it may be something that you just build into your day-to-day life. And it's helpful then to establish a morning ritual to remind you of your intentions. And maybe it's something that you do during your prayer time, or maybe you establish a prayer time, even it's only sitting for 5 minutes in the quiet when you get up, to go into that mindset of, here's how I want to spend my day. I think journeying with companions is very helpful, and that is so that you have someone to talk about your experiences with. And that can be a virtual partner. You don't have to be side by side in this, but someone who is interested and willing to listen and wants to know more about what it is you're experiencing and why this is important to you. I find when I finish a pilgrimage, right there at that time, I don't know how I've been affected by it. It takes me a while to process that, and that processing for me always comes with telling the story of what I've experienced and what I did, and it's through that outward sharing that I begin to more deeply inwardly digest what I've experienced. So let me share with you some of the experiences I had along the way on the Camino de Santiago. Now, first of all, for this long a journey and this much physical activity, sustenance is a very important element of that. So the food was marvelous. I prefer a vegetarian diet. I do some fish, but when I'm traveling, I'm a flexitarian, and I still don't do meat, but I do seafood. And the octopus, which you see here on the top, on the left-hand side, those two pictures, the octopus in Spain was just fabulous. It's specifically in Galicia, which is the state in which we spent most of our time, and where Santiago de Compostela is located. The top right-hand corner is what we would call, I think, a frittata. They call a tortilla, and it is essentially an egg dish baked with potatoes and onions and peppers and any variety of things. Sometimes they have meat in them. This one was extraordinary because it sort of looked like a huge wheel of cheese before they cut these wedges out of it, probably about 6 inches tall. It had 80 eggs in it. We found out from the person who had made it. It must have been baked, and it was fabulous, with a cup of café con leche, coffee with milk on the side. It was a great um, treat midway through the morning. And the bottom right, one of my lunches one day when I had tuna and white asparagus. There were a variety of vegetarian options usually. I think vegans would have a really hard time personally. Um, there, at least in the restaurant menus that I saw, there weren't a lot of vegan options. Spain is sort of like, well, why would you only eat vegetables? So it helps to be a little flexible. This drink here in the top left-hand picture is in England they call it a lager shandy, but it's a mixture of beer and like a lemonade, and they have it on tap at some of these little roadside trailside places that we stop to eat. Bottom left is the squid, which was also really wonderful. And then the big picture on the right hand side is my favorite treat of all time, called pain au chocolat, and it's essentially croissant pastry wrapped around chocolate. And in this picture, I've divided it up so I could share it with the rest of the table. But the next day, I had a whole one all by myself. It was really quite amazing. I'm not sure that was quite the best idea, but I sure enjoyed it. And with a cup of café con leche, will definitely keep you going all morning long. So this is how we had most of our meals. On the left-hand side, this is where very typical of places we would stop. You would almost always eat outside, not just because we were recovering or coming out of COVID and we didn't want to be in enclosed spaces, but because it was just delightful to sit outside. Even in the rain, they have these big umbrellas and it was quite pleasant. And then on the right is one of our group dinners, and this is the way they were the setup usually worked, that we were all seated at one big long table, and sometimes we were served family style, but usually it was this way with individual dishes to order. We usually would have a limited selection off the menu so that it made it a little bit easier for the restaurants. The building that we're in this right-hand picture is actually a converted convent. It was the Sisters of St. Francis in Spain. It was a lovely, lovely place. And the rooms were all converted cells. We experienced solitude. There were times when we could walk long distances and see very, very few other people. This was mostly true in the first 5 days. Once we got closer to Santiago de Compostela, the crowds really picked up. And we had timed our entry into Santiago to coincide with Ascension Day, and so had a lot of other people, because there's a big festival in Santiago. It's the second biggest holiday in Santiago de Compostela, the first being St. James Day, which is in July. So just some days of just awe and wonder with nobody else around. But there was also congestion. And this is more of what the trail was like as we got closer to Santiago. But this setting is also wonderful for meeting new people. And I met and talked with people from all over the world. And the questions are usually, so why the Camino? Why are you here? And where are you from? And how long have you been on the trail? When did you start? So everyone here has a shared experience of walking the Camino de Santiago. And it's great to share stories and to hear where people are from and what they're doing. We had lots of sunshine, especially the first half of our trip. In fact, it was quite warm. It was in the 80s a couple of days, and it was really warm walking, but beautiful. The poppies were extraordinary, and the scenery just wonderful. But we also had rain. And we all brought waterproof jackets and pants, and we used them. We used them most days of the last 5, either part or all of the day. And you can see in the bottom right picture, sometimes we were starting out in the dark, in the mist, in the fog, and just a large variety of experiences. I couldn't get a picture of the rain falling, so I got a picture of the in the top right, the water forming a stream on the trail. It rained really hard that day. There was mystery involved. There was this top left-hand picture when you start out in the dark. We were just leaving the main street here, but that sense that you get of climbing those stairs into what's on the other side was very, very present to me. And once we turned that corner up there, we had to use headlamps because it was very dark, but we had a long day ahead of us and needed to get a really early start that day. Misty mornings and beautiful skies, and just a sense of, wow, I'm here, I'm actually doing this. And it is such an incredible blessing. So there were elements of surprise. On the left-hand side, this is a photo op place in, actually this was on the Portuguese route. That's my face in the center there. But I included this picture here because it gives you an idea of the silhouette, the iconic silhouette of the pilgrim. So then look at this over here on the right, that shadow, there's not like a, there's not anything, one thing that's casting that shadow. It is an assortment of whatever is between the light and that wall. So I can't, it's part of it is this post here, but some of it you look around and you can't identify why the pilgrim is there in that shadow, like what it comes from. It was amazing. Our guide insisted that we go there one night when we were all dead tired and, oh, do we have to? Yes, you have to come see this. And very, very interesting. I have no idea what combination of things cast that shadow. And that's on the wall of the cathedral. We saw wildlife, cows just walking by down the street being led by someone. The sheep herder waiting for the pilgrims to go by so that he and the dog can get the sheep to where he needs them to be. And these dogs in the upper right hand corner were the biggest canines I have ever seen. They had to have been 150 pounds each. But they were effectively watching over their sheep, that's for sure. Yeah, we had days, well, these 2 pictures of me are taken on the same day. I took the one on the left, starting out one morning, just feeling strong and ready to go. And like, this is going to be a really good day. I felt spiffy in my clothes. And on the right-hand side is at the end of the day. And feeling swacked is the best way I can describe that. We had done 16, that might be the 18-mile day that we did. And it was just, there was a great sense of accomplishment, but also, oh my gosh, where is the shower and a bed for a lie down? At the end of 10 days of walking, no, I'm sorry, 8 days of walking, we arrived in Santiago de Compostela, and it was something. It was great to be there. So this is the entrance to the city, and we paused there for a group photo, and then we proceeded to walk to the cathedral in silence. We walked through the town and ended up at the cathedral in the plaza there. I showed a picture of the cathedral in the last round of slides, but this is a traditional picture of everyone in the group with their boots 1 foot in the circle next to the scallop shell. You see we had one person who was intent on shedding her hiking boots just as soon as we got to wherever we were going. She was a strong hiker, but boy, she was ready to get out of her boots when we arrived at the cathedral. So there's the cathedral. This picture of me with Canon Greg Foraker from the Office of the Bishop, and Greg and I co-led this trip. Greg has been doing pilgrimages for a number of years, has led them every year except during COVID for the diocese, and is the key person in the office of the bishop who makes these things happen. After that, after arriving, we got settled into our hotel, and then some of us gravitated to this little hotel plaza right outside the cathedral, and where we could watch the pilgrims enter and the festivity. And there were people dancing and singing, and obviously everybody taking pictures, but it was really fun just to sit and look at the facade of the cathedral and think, yeah, here we are. So this is the interior of the cathedral. It's been just recently restored. It's in beautiful shape. The cathedral is very large, holds thousands of pilgrims, and they do numerous masses every day for the pilgrims. And there is a highlight of this cathedral that is world known. This is the Boto Fumera, which means boat or vessel of fire. This is a thurible. So they burn incense in this in a very special kind of ceremony. I have been there twice. I've sat through 3 or 4 services, and I have yet to see this in action. And I'm going to keep going back until I see it. And I want to give you just a little snippet of what that looks like and why it is so special. So we're going to switch here to a short video, just less than 2 minutes, of the Botafumeiro swinging in October of 2014 for the Pilgrim's Mass. Okay, here we go. Oops, sorry, I did not share that appropriately. We're going to give that another try. Okay, there we go. So I hope you can see why that was a very special experience. So once we reach Santiago, that is not the true end of the Camino de Santiago. The pilgrimage actually officially ends out here on the coast at Finisterra, you'll hear me refer to it. This is another 3-day walk from Santiago, and most pilgrims don't do it. They usually end here in Santiago and call it good, because they have indeed had quite a pilgrimage. I have a goal personally of one day doing that last 3 days out here to Finisterra. This is me at kilometer marker 0. all along the way, we watch the kilometers tick down. And when you get here to the coast, you have actually reached the 0 point. There is no place further to go. And it is a beautiful spot on the ocean. Just gorgeous. We had our Eucharist here in this spot, right here along this, a little bit further up this path when we arrived. And it was a very special worship experience. This is the cross that stands there as you enter, just as you're walking out to the point. And again, just you can actually climb up on those rocks and just feel the power of the ocean and absorb the enormity of what it has accomplished. So, and that is the end of this walk, but just the beginning. We tell our pilgrims that your real Camino begins when you get home and you begin to truly process what you've done and how it has felt. And I know the experience just continues to grow for me in its significance in my life. And I just highly recommend this pilgrimage or any significant pilgrimage, however you're able to do it. The diocese will be sponsoring another trip to the Camino de Santiago next year, October of next year. We will be following the Portuguese route, which is the one I did in 2019. And it is every bit as wonderful as the Camino Frances, which we did this year. And the Frances is the more well-known. It's the oldest route, but the Portuguese route, I think, is, I like it even better. I like the variety of things that we experienced along the way, the variety of terrains and more little villages that we walked through. And I think it was more charming to me. So that will be in October of next year. I will be putting out information in the Thursday updates when we get details so that people can sign up if they want. We'll leave I think we're going to shoot for the October 18th or 19th as a departure date, with the plan to enter or be in Santiago for All Saints Day, which should be marvelous. And I'm sure we'll get to see the Botafumeiro swing on All Saints Day. So that concludes this presentation. Thank you so much for joining me. And any questions at all, you can find me through the church office. Thank you.